Hello, 7th graders, and tonight we're going to look at lesson 2-6 on solving equations by multiplying or dividing. So if we talk about yesterday's lesson, we talked about how to solve equations by adding or subtracting. And the main way we did that was doing the opposite of what they were doing with numbers in those columns. And tonight's lesson, you're going to see basically the same idea. So tonight we have two main objectives. First, students will be able to solve one-step equations using division. And secondly, students will be able to solve one-step equations using multiplication. So, as a warm-up, we need to simplify each quotient. So basically, you need to divide them out. And I'm going to have you get started on this in just a moment, but I just have a few things to remind you of. All right, if both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative, when you divide, you get a positive quotient. But if one number is positive and one is negative, you get a negative quotient. All right, so keep that in mind as you do these four problems. So go ahead and pause me now and solve those problems. All right, let's check the warm-up. 18 divided by 18 is 1, and because they're both positive, it's a positive 1. Number 2, we have negative 7 divided by 7. One's negative and one's positive, so we have a negative 1. Number 3, we have 21 divided by a negative 21. Again, one's positive, one's negative, so you end up with a negative 1. And then number 4, negative 13 divided by another negative 13. Well, both are negative, so you end up with a positive 1. So that's what you should have had for those four problems. Now, we're going to get right into the division property of equality tonight. And basically, it's going to look familiar to last night's lesson. You can divide each side of an equation by the same number, and those two sides remain equal. I keep bringing up that idea of the scale. If you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other. If you don't, it's going to be unbalanced, somebody's going to fall off, however you want to think of it, if you think of it as a seesaw. So here we have number 1, and this one looks a little bit different than the ones you have in your notes, but it still goes with the same idea. Pens come in boxes of a dozen. If I have 288 pens, how many boxes did I buy? Now again, I know some of you just want to go straight for the answer, but we need to come up with an equation, all right? So we know there are pens that we bought, and we know there are 12 in a box because they say they come in boxes of a dozen. Now we don't know how many boxes we bought, so this must be our variable, B. All right, so I know for every box, I'm going to get 12 pens. I'm going to put 12 times B is equal to, well, 288, because I have 288 pens. So 12 times B is the same as 288. So that's how that one would be set up. Now we go back to that division property of equality. You can divide each side of an equation by the same number, and the sides remain equal. So basically, again, we're going to go through those same steps we did last night. 1, identify the variable. So find the variable. All right? That's your first step. And here my variable is B. Step 2, number on the same side. So look and see, what is that number on the same side? And here it's this 12. 12 is on the same side as B. And then 3, do the opposite. So, right now, there is 12 times B. All right? To get rid of that 12, we need to do the opposite of the operation they're doing now. So the inverse operation. So if they're multiplying, we want to divide. Because 12 divided by 12, as you saw in the warm-up, is 1. So we're left with 1B or just B. And if we do it to one side, do it to the other. So 288 divided by 12, well, let's take a look. It goes in twice, and then I'm left with 48, and that is 4. And we bought 24 boxes. So B, or 1B, is equal to 24. That's how we're going to do these ones. So now we have this one. And we're going to start actually with this 4x. So skip that first one for now. 4 times x is the same as 84. Same idea occurs. Number 1, find the variable. And bold it, as I do, please. and my variable here is x. Well, they're doing 4 times x. The opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. So I do that to both. Well, 4 divided by 4 is 1, or 1x. And then 84 divided by 4 is, if you do the work, 4 goes into 8 2 times. Carry down the 4, 21. X is 21. Now, these problems work the same as yesterday's too. You could check them. So try to put that 21 in for x. 4 times 21. Let's see if that's actually 84. And let me multiply that out. 21 times 4, 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 84. There we go, they check. So x must be 21. Now do the same with this negative 2 times b equals negative 24. Same idea applies. So 1, find the variable. 2, what number are they multiplying by here? All right, and then do the opposite of it. So I'm going to go ahead and let you solve this problem, and when you're done, come back and check your answer. Go ahead and pause me now. All right, let's check your answer. Well, the variable here is b, and, well, the number being multiplied by b is negative 2. So I'm going to divide by a negative 2. Now, again, 2 negatives make a positive, so I still have a 1b, or just b here. And then negative 24 divided by negative 2. Well, 24 divided by 2 is 12, and 2 negatives make a positive. So b is 12. And again, I can check it. Negative 2 times 12 is a negative 24. One's positive, one's negative. It checks out. All right, here's this one. Same idea again. Go ahead and solve it. Negative 3 times b is equal to or the same as 24. Solve for b and then make sure you check your answer. Then come back and, well, see me solve it too. Go ahead and do that now. Well, my variable here is b. So I'm going to put that in red. And then I look, well, I have negative 3 times b. Well, the opposite of times by negative 3 is dividing. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1b. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. One's positive, one's negative, so my answer is a negative 8. Then let me just multiply it together. To check it, negative 3 times negative 8, well, 3 times 8 is 24. 2 negatives make a positive. It checks. So for this one, you should have had negative 8. So now we're going to the opposite of this. And this is the multiplication property of equality. And I bet you more than anything, it means you're going to be multiplying. So idea is you can multiply both sides of an equation by the same number and the sides remain equal. Again, as long as you do it to both sides, it doesn't change the equation. So here, we have the equation x divided by 8 is equal to negative 5. All right? And those 3 steps still occur. Find your variable, see what operation it is, and what number is there, and then do the opposite. So, my variable here is x. On the same side, they're dividing by 8. That's what this bar means, to divide by 8. So the opposite of dividing by 8 is timesing by 8. All right, so those cross out, and again, I have to do it to both sides. Negative 5 times 8, well, 5 times 8 is 40. By multiplying negative times a positive, you get a negative. So negative 40. And again, I can check my answer. Let's make sure I have it right. Negative 40 divided by 8, well, 40 divided by 8 is 5, but that negative makes it a negative 5. Those check. So my answer here is a negative 40. All right, same idea here. And you're going to solve this one. We have x divided by 4 is the same as negative 6. Go ahead and solve for x. Pause me now. All right, so if we were to do this, my variable here is x, and they're dividing by 4. Well, instead of dividing by 4, to get rid of it, I need to times by 4. So if I times each side by 4, I get x is equal to, well, 6 times 4 is 24. But a negative times a positive is a negative 24. I get x is negative 24, but I'm going to check my answer just to make sure I have it right. So negative 24 divided by 4. Well, 24 divided by 4 is 6. One's negative, one's positive, so my answer is negative. So I should get, yep, the original checks out. I get negative 6. And I really don't need to circle that because that's not my answer for this problem. My answer is a negative 24. All right. So we're at the end of this lesson. And what I want you to do is solve 1, 3, and 5. Again, check out what operation is happening each time so you make sure you do the opposite of it. So number 1, they have 8 times x is the same as negative 48. What would you have to do to get x alone? And so on. So again, do 1, 3, and 5, and then come back and check your answers. Go ahead and do that now. All right. Well, I see 8 times x is negative 48. The opposite of timesing by 8 is dividing by it. So I'm left with x is negative 6. 8 times 6 is 48. One's positive, one's negative, so you get a negative 6. Then number 3, I have 108 is the same as 9 times x. Well, again, my variable here is x. All right, and right now we have 9 times x. Well, to get rid of that 9 times, I need to divide by 9. And when you do that, 108 divided by 9, well, 9 goes into 10 one time. I'm left with 18. Oh, x must be 12. And then number 5, negative 6 is the same as n divided by 4. Well, my variable here is n. And this time they're dividing by 4, so I need to times by 4 to both sides, always to both sides. I get n is 4 times 6 is 24, so 4 times negative 6 is a negative 24. All right, so those are the numbers you should have had, or the answers you should have gotten for 1, 3, and 5. Again, if you feel like you don't quite have this down yet, do 2 and 4. Extra practice does not hurt you. It only makes you better. All right, and then I will see you tomorrow in class. Have a great night.